You don't see NATO stepping up to the plate. They give, like, the British are great for this. Love my British friends. But they're great for giving these wonderful, tough-sounding speeches and then going to have afternoon tea afterwards and feeling they did something. Well, where's the action to follow through on that? Like, where's the scaling up of your industry to meet the demand for this conflict?
Right.
I mean, the British actually had to shrink the size of their army because they couldn't meet the recruitment goal. That's not a good situation. You're a year into this war in Ukraine and you're shrinking your army when you should actually be like doubling it.
Right.
You should be scaling up production of munitions and aircraft and weapons, but you're not doing any of that. And you're not even spending more money on defense. Like in Germany, all the NATO countries are doing this. And this is the problem. It's like we're a year into this, into supporting this war in Ukraine, and you guys haven't even transitioned to wartime economy. Well, guess who did transition to wartime economy? The Russians a year ago. And they have factories running, mass producing this stuff 24/7. And they're just continuing to scale and get more and more of their production going that way. And we don't really have a good read on like how effective our sanctions are and things going on inside there either.
My friend Jack Murphy was on here a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you saw that one. But he did a report basically on the CIA conducting sabotage inside of Russia, and or not inside of Ukraine, but all inside of Russia.
Yeah, going after those specific factories.
Going after factories. There's been all these fires, all these these trains getting derailed, all kinds of crazy things going wrong. Russia's been sort of like brushing them off because they don't want to acknowledge that it's some sort of foreign adversary doing it, because they don't want to lose morale for their people and their troops. But Jack confirmed through a number of vetted CIA sources that it is a NATO country working through it's the CIA working through a NATO country to do this stuff. So they have some sort of plausible deniability. Which is wild story.
That's what we do, though. That's why our country is very good at doing that kind of stuff. You know, we're very adept at waging proxy wars.
Yes.
You know, the concern I have with all the proxy wars is when we were in Iraq, right? So we had Iran, the IRGC was supplying weapons to fight us. And a lot of our guys got killed with those explosively formed penetrators, those EFPs. And that was when they were interfering, right? During that war, we did not have Russia or China actively interfering in that war against us. We didn't have Russia providing Al-Qaeda to the tune of $100 billion of weapons and munitions and intelligence support and all that kind of stuff. We just didn't. And my concern is when you're waging a proxy war, particularly against another superpower, and everyone, I mean, they know we're doing this. What's going to happen in the next time we go to war? So say there's another conflict or war in Africa or in the Middle East or somewhere else, right? And the U.S. is involved in that conflict. Well, let's just say that Russia is not going to take their own revenge on us for that. Because when we were in Vietnam, the Russians messed with us for years with that, in that war and cost us a lot of people. And they're supplying the North Vietnamese with weapons and aircraft and equipment and technical expertise. And we lost a lot of Americans from that. And when Russia went into Afghanistan, we returned the favor and hit them hard like that. And that's kind of stopped. But now we have restarted that with that proxy type actions in Ukraine. So you got to expect that they're going to retaliate and hit us with the same kind of thing in another future conflict. Or we say, oh, we'll just do sanctions. Sanctions didn't stop them from invading Ukraine. Okay. That didn't work. So the only thing that's going to stop them is military force. And we got to step back at some point and just say, this is a nice, beautiful planet. We all don't need to like destroy each other and blow each other up over some of these conflicts. There's a way for us to negotiate and figure out how we can solve this without trying to kill each other.
Well, it's the people. You
got to want to actually solve it, though.
There's such a gap in humanity between the people that are doing the fighting and the psychopaths that are running the country, the diplomats and the people that make all these decisions and that are making all this money and trying to advance their political careers by doing X, Y, and Z. And
I mean,
the neoconservatives like Victoria Nuland and her husband and those people.
Nuland, so like her husband runs the Institute for the Study of War. You know, that General Jack Keane is like one of the chairmen on and always talking about on Fox News and they always cite the Institute for the Study of War. Well, her husband's one of the founders of this thing, and they're kind of the architects for the surge in Iraq and just the perpetuation of the whole invasion there in doing that. And it's frustrating because it's the same cluster of people who are pushing and doing all these things. And it's like your policy was tested and failed. So let's not continue to use the same failed policy. Let's try something different. Let's try a different approach, right? It's like when I'm interrogating a really tough individual, I can beat my head against the wall trying the same approach. Or I can say, you know what, this isn't working. Let's try something different. We can still meet our objective, but just try a different approach. You know, with Russia, why we didn't have to pursue this complete adversarial relationship with Russia. You know, we keep saying, well, Russia is invading all these foreign, you know, invading their neighbors and doing all this stuff like that. The borders of NATO have not. Russia didn't expand its border with NATO. NATO expanded its border forward.
Right. Correct.
Like, I mean, that's happened.
Yes. But it's all defensive, right? It's all.
That's what they keep saying. It's all defensive. Well, here's my question: why can't Russia be part of NATO? Why not?
That's a good question. Why not?
Why not? Because if I mean, and people say, "Well, they'll roast me for this." I know.
Well, NATO
is
designed to
counter
defend Russia, right?
Yeah.
By definition, that's what NATO is.
Okay, so when we say, "Well, why can't Russia be part of NATO?" Well, you have Greece and Turkey. Those two nations have hated each other for thousands of years. They have fought just countless wars against each other. They are also both put into NATO, jammed in there together, and they can't fight anymore. They can't fight. They're not able to fight each other in open conflict because they are part of NATO. They're members now. There's a process for them to have dialogue and disputes and handle these problems and go through things like that. And so when we have this issue with Russia, NATO is around to deal with Russia. And Russia has become an aggressive and adversarial against the U.S. since 2000, I think it was 2008 when they first intervened in Georgia. And it's been aggressive like that ever since. But it was aggressive like that because leading up to that point, we were continuing to encroach and advance on their border. And they said, well, if you're going to advance on our border, we need a buffer. If we're not going to be part of this community, we're going to be the boogeyman, and you're going to continue to advance forward, we need a buffer.
When they invaded Georgia, do you remember who wasn't, I'm going to fuck this up, but wasn't the leader of Georgia somebody that we were paying like some incredible salary?
I don't remember. I mean, I was in Iraq at the time when that happened. It was kind of funny because the FOB I was working at had a whole ton of Georgians stationed at that FOB because they were in Iraq with us, like 3,000 of them, I think. And when the war happened, all 3,000 of the Georgians within like a day were flown in and brought into Baghdad, and we put them all on the C-130s and C-17s and flew right back to Georgia. And so they were in Iraq, and then a few days later, they were back in their own country, off to fight the Russians. And we provide intelligence and tell them, say, hey, those anti-aircraft guns you have, why don't you move those to this valley over here and move this one to here and just wait and see what happens.
Right.
And the next thing you know, Russian planes are flying through and getting zapped. I told them where to go. They didn't have that capability. But they also got steamrolled. The Russians just steamrolled right through them, and they had to make they got a ceasefire and stuff when they were I believe on the outskirts of Tbilisi at that point.
I don't know if I'm remembering this right. I don't remember if it was Georgia or it was a governor of some sort of state in like southern Ukraine. But they found out this guy actually posted on his Facebook page his salary or what he was paid, and America was paying him like $250,000 a year, and he was being paid more than the governor of Massachusetts.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Like, what the fuck? No wonder there's such a bad taste in the Russians' mouth when we are so balls deep in these places that are surrounding Russia.
Yeah.